Okay, team, in this video we're going to review how to bill a customer in Tigerpaw and to fill out a contract to complete the sales process. To bill in Tigerpaw, we have to do what we call receive, fill, and bill. We're going to receive a PO, we're going to fill the parts, and then we're going to actually bill or invoice the customer. Now what we first need is our service order, our SO number, and the customer that we are dealing with is 297400. Now there's a couple of different ways of searching in Tigerpaw, but I'm going to show you one of our first shortcuts. If we just hit the F9 key, what it does is bring up a screen and we can type in our service order number, 297400. So this brings us back to Acme Pool Repair. As you can see, we've done a few notes here. We got on work performed. Rick has submitted orders. We got all kinds of notes. We got tracking going on. This stuff is good stuff. It'll come into play later. So now what we have to do in the first major step is receive. We have to receive our purchase order. We go down to related documents. We have our purchase order attached here. We're going to double click and bring that up. This screen here shows all the parts. What we're going to go is to Receipts tab. Now in the Receipts tab, at this point, we got a couple of different icons going on here. We have what's called a gear, which is a non-serialized part. And then we have this funky looking thing. If you look close, you probably don't see it on your screen, but it's 01, 02, 03. It represents serial numbers. So that means it's a serialized part, and we're going to need serial numbers in order to fill this. The first thing that I would do is we're going to fill the non-serialized first. That's the easiest. We're going to do that by clicking on this middle button right here. It just gives us the receipt date for today. I'm going to say OK. And what you're going to see is now this unposted, it has filled or has received all these non-serialized parts. The serialized, now under posted, I've already done some of these to save us some time, but there is one here. These phones, we're going to receive 5 of them, but I need 5 serial numbers to do that. What I've done, and there's going to be a website, especially from Mitel, that we go out to and we can pull down all the serial numbers. I actually kind of made these up since these aren't real parts. But here are my 5 serial numbers. I'm going to double click on this item. Quantity I want to receive. I want to receive 5 of these. But now I have to tell the system what serial numbers I want. I'm going to click on this little button here. I enter the serial numbers. I'm just going to go over to my spreadsheet and I'm just going to do a copy, come back to my serial number, do a paste, and I'm going to hit the plus key to add it. It's added 1 serial. So I'm going to do that for the next 4. You notice when I do the last one, it's going to give me a message, hey, you reached it, you're done. I say OK. I save it. I save that again. Now I have received 5, but I've not posted anything yet. So now the final step is once you've received all your items, is we're going to post it. Post all the receipts. I'm just going to say yes to this message. It says the processing is complete. And when I say OK, you notice everything moved from unposted to posted. So now all of my items are in inventory. Now that I've received, I need to fill. So I'm going to return to the SO. I can go to related documents. And I can double click here on my SO. So now that I'm back, I want to go up to my parts and labor again. This is where we were before in the very beginning when we added our parts originally. Here are the parts that we entered before. We created our purchase order off of this originally. It has all the items in here. One thing I forgot to mention is we should have noted the location number. I'm going to jump back real quick. I do know what it is, but I want to show you where to get that from. Right off the purchase order. This location that we changed, FTRAS. So we just want to make note of that. And the reason I want that is because we're going to fill from that location, and you'll see why in a second. Now I can do a couple of different fills. I can go the long way. If there's only a few amount of parts, I can click on a part. I can go here to fill a selected item. Here's that location, and I can save. Now I can do that for each individual part. Now the other way, since I have so many, is what I'm going to do is fill everything and then unfill what I don't want, meaning this equipment line and shipping and handling, because I have $0. To do that, I'm going to go to the default. In this fill from location, I'm going to make that FTRAS, because that's where I want it to fill from. Then I'm going to click this button to the right. And if you notice, it says fill all unserialized items. When I do that, now you notice in this filled column, everything is there. What I want to do now is under equipment, I don't want this item filled. I'm just going to click this button and it says release. And I'm just going to release that one. In shipping and handling, I'm going to do the same. This is just a quicker way to get all your items filled and then unfill the couple items that you don't want. So as you can see, that's unfilled, but my labor's filled, my maintenance is filled. And as I scroll through here, I notice that there's a serialized part that didn't fill. And everything else is filled. So now, because the system wants to know what actual serial numbers do you want, I'm going to go to this fill selected on that item. And if you notice down here under that location, here are all the test serial numbers that I previously put in and received in my purchase order. I'm just going to click on each one and fill. Save, and now that item's filled. I just take another quick gander just to make sure I've got everything filled that I want to bill. And just as a side note, if we want a partial bill, we could bill 5 out of the 7 items, but in this case we're billing the entire thing. We don't have to bill labor, but in this case I'm assuming I got my COA and I'm just billing the entire job. Once you have everything filled, then the next step is to actually bill it. I go to the little icon up here to create a new invoice. It is going to create a partial, and the reason it says partial, if you remember, I unfilled the equipment and unfilled the shipping and handling, but that's okay. We want to leave those unfilled, and we're going to create a partial. On this screen, it kind of gives you one last look at the parts, just to make sure you haven't missed anything. It doesn't give you dollar amounts, but at least gives you all the parts. We're just going to invoice again. It is asking me if I want to close out the service order. I'm going to say no. And now we're to the actual invoice itself. Now, what I try to do is verify the total, $11,479. I happen to have my sale open, $11,479.19. That matches. We were off that nickel, if you remember, right? It calculates the tax. It has the invoice terms. Under this tab, if we had a customer PO, it would fill out. The only thing I really do here is on the comments. I try to clean it up a little bit. Everything that was listed under that work performed will actually show up on the invoice. But at this point, we can kind of clean it up. A lot of this is more internal notes for us. I do like to give them the shipping information if we have it. So I'm just going to highlight and delete. If there's anything else you want to clean up, there's actually, you can type whatever you want. Actually, I can say COA received. You make your own notes. We do have a comment field that this prints up in the header section of the invoice. We do have, if you want to print next to the actual total on the invoice, you can also type in some information here. Once I've cleaned it up, what I'm going to do is approve the invoice. Now it's ready to be emailed. You can be happy to do a print preview, but I'll show you that later as we get to the email. Now I'm going to send the email. I say yes. Here's an important step. We have different logos in our system. This is actually defaulted to a TCI. I want to do a drop down and pick the second one. That's an invoice, and we'll put the Frontier logo on the invoice. I email it. And it will pre-fill with the contact information. Now, I don't know, this guy doesn't really exist, but that's okay. Down here is the actual invoice. I'm just going to bring that up so you can take a look at it. As you can see, it does fill out the Frontier logo. Here's all that tracking information I wanted to put on the invoice. And down here under the parts and labor, you can see that actual serial numbers fill out on the invoice itself. And here's the total. Then all I have to do is hit send, and it goes out to the customer. I'm not going to send that. I'm going to come back to this screen here, and my last step is to actually post the invoice. I just say yes to this screen. It's confirming I want to invoice it and post it. It gives me a confirmation, and the status has changed to posted. I return to my service order. Anything in blue is usually a hyperlink to bring you back. We tend to fill out any kind of comments here if you want, but the most important thing is under status. I do a drop down, and we have a status, in this case, Frontier invoiced. And it's just a quick little glance to each SO, you know what stage it's in. Once I've changed the status, I can just hit save. And basically I'm done billing the customer. The last step is I'm going to go back up to that contract that we had created before. Here's a contract. And if you remember, this was the shell contract. I'm just going to double click it. What I'm going to do is clean it up. In the reference, I'm going to take out this sold date. And this is just the indication that the job is done. If I need to change the start dates and the end dates, I can. But now my item's covered. I'm going to click here and down under this little icon. I'm going to add all the parts that I just built. The same selection criteria can apply. I'm going to select the first one. I'm going to scroll to the bottom, hold my shift, and pick all the parts. And if you notice, the contract number is now 0. I'm going to add all of these to the contract. And now if you notice, the contract number is filled out. So now anytime anyone looks up the contract, they can always come to this tab and they can see what it is actually covered under the contract in particular. Another nice feature with the customer is there's also an inventory, customer assets, that I can click on, and it will tell me what that customer has and whether or not it's on a contract. And that completes the process. Thank you.